The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone courtyard of St. Andrews University as William Arthur Philip Lewis Windsor adjusted his worn backpack and took a deep breath. September 2001 had arrived with crisp Scottish air and the promise of anonymity he desperately craved. For the first time in his 19 years, he could simply be Will to his friends, not Prince William, second in line to the throne. His protection officers maintained their distance as agreed, allowing him the illusion of normalcy as he navigated toward his first lecture hall. The weight of his future pressed against his shoulders like an invisible crown. But here, surrounded by fellow students clutching coffee cups and textbooks, he felt something he had rarely experienced, the possibility of genuine connection. 3 buildings away, Catherine Elizabeth Middleton was having her own moment of nervous anticipation. She smoothed her long chestnut hair and checked her reflection in the dormitory mirror one final time. Her parents, Michael and Carol, had worked tirelessly to afford her this opportunity at one of Scotland's most prestigious universities. Their party supply business had grown from humble beginnings to modest success, and Kate knew every pound spent on her education represented sacrifice and hope. The art history lecture hall buzzed with excited chatter as students filed in, each carrying dreams as diverse as their backgrounds. Kate chose a seat near the middle, close enough to see the presentation screen clearly but far enough back to observe her new classmates. She noticed a tall, sandy-haired young man slip in quietly, his posture suggesting someone accustomed to avoiding attention. Professor Jenkins began his introduction to Renaissance art with passion that immediately captivated the room. As slides of magnificent paintings filled the screen, Kate found herself completely absorbed in the discussion of light, shadow, and human emotion captured in oils and tempera. During a particularly animated explanation of Caravaggio's technique, she turned slightly and caught the eye of the sandy-haired student. William had been equally engrossed in the lecture, grateful for the intellectual stimulation that demanded nothing of his royal status. When the brunette girl near the center turned his way, their eyes met for just a moment. Her smile was genuine, unguarded, holding none of the calculated interest he had grown accustomed to from people who knew his identity. After class, students clustered in small groups, introducing themselves and comparing schedules. Kate gathered her material slowly, still processing the richness of the lecture content. As she stood to leave, she accidentally knocked her heavy art history textbook to the floor. The sound echoed in the gradually emptying hall. "Here, let me help," came a voice with a distinctly upper-class English accent. William had instinctively moved to assist, bending to retrieve the fallen book. As he handed it back to her, their fingers brushed briefly. "Thank you," Kate said, her voice warm with genuine gratitude. "I'm Kate. Catherine, actually, but everyone calls me Kate." "Will," he replied, appreciating how naturally she spoke to him. No recognition flickered in her brown eyes, no sudden change in demeanor. "Are you planning to take Professor Jenkins' full course sequence? He seems brilliant." Their conversation flowed effortlessly as they walked from the lecture hall, discovering shared interests in art, sports, and outdoor activities. Kate mentioned her love of photography and hockey, while William found himself admitting his passion for polo and his struggles with the weight of expectations, though he kept these deliberately vague. Over the following weeks, chance encounters became deliberate meetings. They discovered they both frequented the same coffee shop between classes. Both preferred studying in the quieter corners of the library, and both felt slightly overwhelmed by the social whirlwind of university life. Their friendship developed gradually, built on genuine compatibility rather than circumstance. Kate appreciated Will's thoughtful questions about her photography and his patient listening as she described her family's business ventures. He seemed genuinely interested in her perspectives on everything from contemporary art to environmental conservation. There was something refreshingly uncomplicated about his attention, even as she sensed depths he kept carefully guarded. For William, Kate represented something precious and rare, acceptance without agenda. She challenged his ideas intellectually, made him laugh with her quick wit, and treated him with the same mixture of warmth and gentle teasing she showed their other friends. When she looked at him, he saw reflected back not the future king, but simply himself. One evening in late October, they found themselves alone in the library's art section, researching a joint presentation on pre-Raphaelite influences. The autumn darkness had fallen early, and the warm light from the reading lamps created an intimate atmosphere among the towering bookshelves. "You know," Kate said, looking up from a book of Rossetti paintings, "I keep feeling like there's something you're not telling me about yourself." William's heart skipped. This was the moment he had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. The carefully constructed normalcy of the past 2 months hung in the balance. "What makes you think that?" he asked carefully, setting down his own research materials. Kate studied his face with the same intensity she brought to analyzing brushstrokes in paintings. "Sometimes you get this look, like you're carrying something heavy, and occasionally people stare at you in ways that suggest they recognize you from somewhere." The silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of unspoken truths. William realized that their friendship had reached a crossroads. He could continue the deception, but doing so would fundamentally change the nature of their connection. Kate deserved honesty, especially if their relationship was to develop into something deeper. "There is something," he admitted finally, "something that might change how you see me, how you see us being friends." Kate closed her book and gave him her complete attention, her expression open but serious. "Whatever it is, Will, it doesn't change who you are to me. You're thoughtful, funny, incredibly smart, and one of the most genuine people I've met here." Her words gave him courage even as they terrified him. In a few moments, everything would change. The precious normalcy they had built together would end, replaced by the complex reality of his position. But looking into her honest, caring face, William realized that truth, however complicated, was the only foundation upon which anything real could be built. The words hung in the air between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. William looked into Kate's expectant face, seeing trust and friendship reflected in her brown eyes. His hands trembled slightly as he prepared to reveal the truth that would change everything. "Kate, my full name is William Arthur Philip Lewis Windsor," he said quietly. "I'm Prince William." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. Kate's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, confusion, realization, and finally, a kind of stunned understanding. She blinked several times as if trying to process information that didn't quite fit with the Will she had come to know. "You mean, you're actually—" she began, then stopped, shaking her head slightly. "The Prince William? Son of Princess Diana." William nodded, watching her face carefully for signs of the change he dreaded. Would she become formal and distant? Would their easy friendship dissolve into the awkward dance he knew so well, where people either wanted something from him or felt too intimidated to be themselves? Kate sat back in her chair, absorbing this revelation. Images flashed through her mind: news coverage of Diana's death, glimpses of a young prince walking behind his mother's coffin, tabloid headlines about the royal family. All of it seemed impossibly distant from the young man who had been helping her with art history research just moments before. "That's why people sometimes stare," she said finally, her voice thoughtful rather than accusatory, "and why you sometimes seem to be carrying the weight of the world." "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," William said, his voice filled with genuine regret. I needed to know that someone could like me for who I am, not what I represent." Kate studied his face, seeing the vulnerability there, the fear of rejection that had nothing to do with royal protocol and everything to do with human connection. Slowly, a small smile spread across her features. "Will," she said, deliberately using his preferred name, "you're still the same person who helped me pick up my textbook on the first day. You're still the one who listens to me ramble about photography and makes terrible jokes during study breaks. Being a prince doesn't change any of that." The relief that washed over William's face was visible. "You're not. This doesn't make things weird between us." "Well," Kate said with a mischievous grin, "it does explain why your study notes are always so perfectly organized. I suppose royal training includes proper penmanship." Their laughter broke the tension, and in that moment, William knew their friendship had not only survived his revelation but had grown stronger. Kate's ability to tease him, to treat him as she always had, was more precious than any formal acceptance could have been. Over the following months, their bond deepened into something neither had expected when they first met in that art history lecture. Kate learned to navigate the complexities of caring for someone whose life was lived under constant scrutiny. She discovered the loneliness that came with William's position, the way duty and expectation shaped every decision, the careful balance between public service and private happiness. William, in turn was continually amazed by Kate's strength and grace under pressure. When photographers occasionally spotted them together, she handled the attention with remarkable composure. She never sought the spotlight, never tried to use their relationship for personal gain, and never made him feel guilty for the complications his status brought to her life. Their university friends gradually learned William's identity, but the group dynamics remained surprisingly normal. Kate's influence seemed to create a protective bubble where Will could be himself, without constant awareness of his royal role. She had a gift for redirecting conversations away from his status and toward topics that engaged him as an individual. During their second year, their friendship began evolving into something deeper. It happened gradually, through shared looks across lecture halls, conversations that stretched late into the evening, and moments of comfortable silence that spoke volumes. Neither rushed to define what was growing between them, perhaps understanding instinctively that their connection needed time to develop away from external pressures. The first time William kissed Kate was during a quiet evening in December, as snow fell softly outside the library windows. They had been studying together, their heads bent over the same book, when he looked up to find her watching him with an expression of such tenderness that all his careful restraint dissolved. "Kate," he whispered, and she moved toward him as naturally as breathing. The kiss was gentle, tentative, filled with all the careful friendship that had preceded it. When they separated, both understood that they had crossed into new territory, one that would require even more courage and honesty than their friendship had demanded. "Are you sure about this?" William asked, his forehead resting against hers. "My life isn't simple, Kate. Dating me means accepting complications you shouldn't have to deal with." Kate's response was to kiss him again, more confidently this time. "I'm not dating a prince," she said softly. "I'm dating Will, who happens to be a prince. There's a difference." Their romantic relationship unfolded with the same careful authenticity that had characterized their friendship. They spent long evenings talking about everything and nothing, sharing dreams and fears with the honesty that comes from genuine intimacy. Kate learned about the weight of duty that William carried, while he discovered her quiet strength and unwavering loyalty. The media attention, when it came, was intense and often cruel. Photographers camped outside Kate's family home. Her background was scrutinized and judged, and every public appearance was analyzed for signs of the relationship's status. Through it all, Kate maintained her dignity, while William struggled with guilt over the invasion of privacy his affection had brought into her life. "I never wanted this for you," he told her during a particularly difficult period when tabloids had been especially harsh in their coverage. "I know," Kate replied simply, "but this is part of loving you, and I do love you, Will. All of you, including the parts that come with complications." Her acceptance of not just him but the entire complex reality of his position moved William deeply. Kate never asked him to choose between duty and personal happiness, never made him feel torn between his role and their relationship. Instead, she seemed to understand intuitively that the two were inseparable parts of who he was. As their university years progressed, both knew they were building something that would extend far beyond their time at St. Andrews. Their love had been tested by scrutiny, strengthened by shared challenges, and deepened by absolute honesty about the realities they faced. What had begun as a chance meeting between two students had evolved into a partnership built on mutual respect, genuine affection, and unwavering commitment to each other's happiness and growth. The years following university tested their relationship in ways neither had anticipated. William's military training took him away for months at a time, first to the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, then to various postings that demanded complete focus and dedication. Kate, meanwhile, pursued her own career path, working for her family's business and later in fashion, all while living under the constant gaze of media speculation about their future. The pressure was unlike anything either had experienced during their protected university years. Every public appearance Kate made was scrutinized for clues about an engagement. Her clothing choices, her expressions, even her presence or absence at events became front-page news. The intensity of the attention sometimes felt suffocating, yet she handled it with remarkable grace, never complaining publicly or seeking sympathy for the challenges she faced. William struggled with the knowledge that his love for Kate had fundamentally altered her life. The carefree young woman who had laughed at his jokes in the university library now had to plan every public outing carefully, knowing that photographers might be waiting around any corner. He watched her sacrifice privacy and normalcy for their relationship, and the weight of that responsibility sometimes felt overwhelming. During one of his rare leave periods, they took a private vacation to Kenya, seeking the anonymity and peace that had become so precious to them. Sitting together watching the sunset over the African landscape, they talked honestly about their future in ways they had never been able to before. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm being selfish," William confessed, his arm around Kate as they sat on the veranda of their remote lodge. "Asking you to accept all of this, the scrutiny, the loss of privacy, the way your life has to revolve around protocols and expectations." Kate was quiet for a long moment, watching the colors shift across the vast sky. "Do you remember what you told me the night you revealed who you were?" she asked finally. "That I wanted someone to like me for who I am, not what I represent." "Exactly. And I fell in love with who you are, Will. The duty, the service, the commitment to something bigger than yourself. That's all part of who you are. I can't separate the man I love from the future king, because they're the same person." Her words carried a depth of understanding that moved him profoundly. Kate had not just accepted his royal status. She had embraced the totality of what loving him meant. She understood that his duty was not a burden imposed upon him, but an integral part of his character and purpose. The Kenya trip also marked a turning point in their relationship. Away from the pressures of London, they could envision a shared future more clearly. William began to understand that Kate was not just someone he loved, but someone with whom he could fulfill his royal duties while maintaining the authentic connection that had drawn them together. When they returned to England, the media speculation about their relationship reached fever pitch. Every interaction was analyzed, every public appearance dissected for signs of an impending engagement. The pressure became so intense that they made the difficult decision to take a temporary break from their relationship in 2007. The separation was agonizing for both of them. William threw himself into his military training, while Kate focused on her career and personal interests. Yet even apart, they remained connected by the deep understanding they had developed. The break served as a period of reflection, allowing each to consider their individual paths and what they truly wanted from life. For Kate, the time apart confirmed what she already knew in her heart. She missed not just William's presence but their shared vision of service and commitment. She had glimpsed the kind of meaningful work she could do as part of the royal family, and the prospect of contributing to causes she cared about alongside the man she loved felt like a calling rather than a sacrifice. William, meanwhile, realized that his hesitation had not been about Kate or their relationship, but about his own readiness to fully embrace the responsibilities that marriage would bring. The temporary separation helped him understand that love and duty did not have to be opposing forces, but could work in harmony when shared with the right partner. Their reunion was quiet and private, but the understanding between them had deepened. They both approached their relationship with greater maturity and clearer vision of their shared future. The playful university couple had evolved into partners who understood the gravity of the commitment they were making to each other and to the roles they would fulfill together. William's proposal came during another private trip to Kenya, the place where they had first openly discussed their future together. He had carried his mother's engagement ring for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. When it came during a quiet afternoon by a crystal-clear lake, the words felt natural and inevitable. "I've loved you since university," he said, kneeling in the African sunshine. "Will you marry me, Kate? Will you share this life with me, whatever it brings?" Kate's yes came through tears of joy, but also with the full knowledge of what she was accepting. This was not just a proposal of marriage, but an invitation to join one of the world's most scrutinized families, to dedicate her life to service, and to help William fulfill his destiny as future king. The engagement announcement brought unprecedented media attention. Kate's transformation from commoner to future princess captured global imagination. But those who knew her understood that the real transformation had been happening gradually over the years they had been together. She had been preparing for this role not through formal training, but through the deep emotional and intellectual partnership she had built with William. The months leading up to their wedding were a whirlwind of preparation, protocol lessons, and media appearances. Kate handled each new challenge with the same quiet strength that had first attracted William. She learned about royal history, studied constitutional law, and began building relationships with the charities and causes that would become central to her public work. More importantly, she and William used this time to solidify their partnership, discussing their vision for their marriage and their approach to royal duties. They were determined to maintain the authenticity that had always characterized their relationship, even as they prepared to step into roles that would place them at the center of national and international attention. The young woman who had once knocked her textbook to the floor in an art history lecture was about to become Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge. Yet at her core she remained Kate, the person who had seen past titles and protocols to love William for exactly who he was, and who was ready to stand beside him as they faced whatever challenges and opportunities their shared future would bring. The morning of April 29, 2011 dawned bright and clear over London, as if the weather itself was celebrating what would become one of the most watched royal weddings in history. Westminster Abbey stood magnificent against the spring sky, its ancient stones having witnessed centuries of royal ceremonies, but none quite like this one. Kate stood in her bridal suite at the Goring Hotel, surrounded by her sister Pippa, her mother Carol, and the small team helping with final preparations. The Sarah Burton-designed dress hung nearby, its intricate lace and elegant silhouette representing months of careful planning and absolute secrecy. As Kate looked at herself in the mirror, she saw not just a bride but a woman about to step into a role that would define the rest of her life. "Are you ready for this?" Pippa asked softly, adjusting the delicate tiara that had belonged to Queen Elizabeth. Kate's reflection met her own eyes in the mirror. The young woman looking back at her carried the same quiet strength that had sustained her through years of public scrutiny. But there was something new there too, a deep certainty about the choice she was making. "I've been ready since that night in the library when he told me who he really was," she replied, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the moment. "This isn't just about marrying Will. It's about stepping into a life of service together." Meanwhile, at Clarence's house, William was experiencing his own pre-wedding moments with his brother Harry, who was serving as best man. The two princes had shared breakfast together, a quiet meal that contrasted sharply with the thousands of people already gathering along the procession route outside. "Any second thoughts?" Harry asked with characteristic directness, though his tone carried genuine concern for his brother's happiness. William adjusted his red Irish Guards uniform, the same regiment he served as colonel. "About Kate? Never. About everything else that comes with today?" He paused, looking out the window at the crowds below. "I think about Mum a lot on days like this. I wish she could be here to see this." "She is here," Harry said firmly. "And she would love Kate, you know that, right? The way Kate handles everything, the way she loves you without trying to change you. Mum would have seen that immediately." The brothers shared a moment of understanding that went beyond words. Diana's absence was felt deeply, but her memory provided comfort and guidance as William prepared to begin this new chapter. The procession to Westminster Abbey was a spectacular display of British pageantry, but for Kate, riding in the state landau with her father Michael, it felt surreal and deeply personal at the same time. Thousands of people lined the streets, waving flags and cheering, many of whom had camped overnight for a glimpse of the royal wedding. "I'm so proud of you," Michael Middleton said quietly as they approached the Abbey. "The way you've handled everything these past years, the grace you've shown. Your mother and I couldn't be more proud." Kate squeezed her father's hand, drawing strength from his steady presence. The little girl who had grown up in Berkshire, playing in their garden and helping with the family business, was about to marry the future King of England. Yet in her heart she was still simply Kate, marrying the man she loved. Inside Westminster Abbey, 2,000 guests created a sea of elegant hats and morning dress. World leaders, celebrities, and royalty from around the globe filled the ancient pews. But for William, standing at the altar in his military uniform, none of it mattered except the moment when Kate would walk through those doors. When the Abbey's great doors opened and Kate appeared on her father's arm, a collective intake of breath rippled through the congregation. The ivory and white satin dress, with its intricate lace bodice and flowing 9-foot train, was breathtaking, but it was Kate herself, radiant, composed, and clearly happy, that captured everyone's attention. William's face, when he first saw his bride, reflected pure joy and wonder. Later, he would tell friends that in that moment, everything else faded away. The cameras, the crowds, the historic significance of the occasion. There was only Kate, walking toward him with the same warm smile she had given him in that university lecture hall nearly a decade earlier. The ceremony itself was both magnificent and intimate. Archbishop of Canterbury Rowan Williams officiated with words that spoke to the personal love between William and Kate, while acknowledging the broader significance of their union. When they exchanged vows, their voices were clear and strong, each word carrying the weight of promises made not just to each other, but to the nation they would serve together. William Arthur Philip Louis, wilt thou have this woman to thy wedded wife, to live together according to God's law in the holy estate of matrimony? Wilt thou love her, comfort her, honor and keep her in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, keep thee only unto her, so long as ye both shall live? I will, William replied, his eyes never leaving Kate's face. When Kate spoke her vows, choosing to omit the traditional promise to obey in favor of love, comfort, honor, and keep, it reflected the modern partnership they had built and intended to maintain. This was a marriage of equals, united in purpose and commitment. The moment William placed his mother's sapphire and diamond engagement ring on Kate's finger was particularly poignant. Diana's presence was felt strongly throughout the ceremony. From the ring to the hymns chosen, to the simple fact that her son was marrying for love, just as she had always hoped he would. The recessional music filled the abbey as the newly married couple walked back down the aisle, now the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. Kate's transformation was complete, but the woman walking beside, William, was still recognizably the same person, who had captivated him with her authenticity and strength. The balcony appearance at Buckingham Palace was the moment the world had been waiting for. As William and Kate stepped out onto the famous balcony, the roar from the crowds below was deafening. The sea of faces stretching down the mall represented not just British subjects, but people from around the world who had been touched by their love story. When William leaned in to kiss his new wife, the crowd erupted in cheers. It was a moment of pure joy that transcended protocol and formality. For that brief instant, they were simply a happy couple sharing their joy with the world. The wedding breakfast that followed was intimate compared to the public ceremony, attended by close family and friends. The speeches were warm and personal, with Harry's best man speech reportedly bringing both laughter and tears. Michael Middleton spoke about watching his daughter grow from a determined little girl into the remarkable woman she had become, but perhaps the most significant moment came when Queen Elizabeth herself stood to toast the new couple. Her words, though private, were said to reflect her genuine affection for Kate and her confidence in the strength of the marriage. The monarch, who had witnessed so many royal unions over her long reign, recognized something special in William and Kate's partnership. As the evening drew to a close and the last guests departed, William and Kate found themselves alone for the first time as husband and wife. The magnitude of the day, the historic ceremony, the global attention, all of it fell away as they sat together, still in their wedding attire, processing the enormity of what they had just undertaken. "We did it," Kate said softly, her head resting on William's shoulder. "We did," he agreed, his arm tightening around her. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Outside, London was still celebrating, but inside the quiet of their private apartments, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge began their life together, knowing that their love story had become part of something much larger than themselves, yet trusting that the foundation they had built would sustain them through whatever challenges and joys lay ahead. The first years of marriage brought William and Kate into their roles as senior working royals, with a grace that surprised even seasoned palace staff. Their honeymoon period extended far beyond their private getaway to the Seychelles, as the public watched with fascination and growing affection as Kate, now the Duchess of Cambridge, settled into royal life with remarkable ease. Their first major test came during their 2011 tour of Canada and the United States, just months after their wedding. Kate's every outfit choice was scrutinized, her interactions with dignitaries analyzed, and her comfort level in formal situations carefully observed. What the world saw was a young woman who had clearly found her footing, carrying herself with confidence while maintaining the warmth and accessibility that had endeared her to the public. In Ottawa, Watching Kate place a wreath at the National War Memorial, William felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with protocol, and everything to do with witnessing his wife honor the service and sacrifice of others with such genuine reverence. Her bow was perfect, her demeanor appropriately solemn, but more importantly, her respect was authentic. "She's natural at this," one veteran royal correspondent noted privately. "It's not just good training, she genuinely cares about the people she's meeting and the causes she's supporting." The tour's highlight came during their visit to a children's hospital in Los Angeles. Kate sat on the floor with young patients, ignoring concerns about her dress as she engaged completely with each child. William watched from across the room as she listened intently to a 6-year-old's explanation of his drawing, her face reflecting the child's own excitement about his artwork. That evening, in the privacy of their hotel suite, they processed the day's events together. "Did you see how that little boy's face lit up when you asked him about his painting?" William asked. "Children don't pretend," Kate replied thoughtfully. "They respond to genuine interest. When we visit hospitals or schools, I'm not just fulfilling a duty. I'm meeting remarkable people who happen to be children. Each one has a story worth hearing." This approach would become Kate's hallmark in royal engagements. Whether visiting elderly residents in care homes or meeting with addiction counselors, she brought the same quality of attention that had first attracted William at university, the ability to be completely present with whoever was in front of her. Their work began to take shape around causes that reflected their personal passions and their shared vision for their royal roles. William's commitment to conservation and homelessness issues was well established, but Kate began developing her own focus areas, particularly around early childhood development and the arts. The announcement of Kate's first pregnancy in December 2012 brought intense media attention, but also a new dimension to their public work. The severe morning sickness that required hospitalization reminded everyone that beneath the royal titles, they were a young couple experiencing the same hopes and anxieties as any expectant parents. William's protective instincts, already heightened by years of watching Kate navigate royal life, intensified during her pregnancy. He had learned from his mother's experience with intrusive media coverage, and he was determined that his wife and children would be shielded from the worst excesses of public curiosity. The birth of Prince George on July 22, 2013, marked a profound shift in their lives and their royal roles. Standing on the steps of the Lindo Wing at St. Mary's Hospital, Kate held their newborn son with the confidence of a natural mother, while William's face reflected wonder and fierce protectiveness. "He's got a good pair of lungs on him, that's for sure," William joked with reporters, but privately, holding his son for the first time had been overwhelming. This tiny person represented not just their love made manifest, but the future of the monarchy. Kate's approach to motherhood surprised no one who knew her well.
She insisted on doing night feedings herself,
Learned to change diapers with the same thoroughness she brought to everything else, and made it clear that while they would accept help, she and William would be hands-on parents. "I want him to have as normal a childhood as possible," she told William during one of George's quiet moments. "Obviously, his life will be different, but I want him to understand kindness, hard work, and service to others. The rest is just circumstances." The arrival of Princess Charlotte in 2015 brought new joys and challenges. Kate handled her second pregnancy with more confidence, and William marveled at how naturally she balanced royal duties with family life. Charlotte's birth showed them as experienced parents, with William clearly more relaxed and Kate radiating the quiet satisfaction of a woman who had found her stride in multiple demanding roles. Their family expanded again with Prince Louis in 2018, and the public watched with affection as the Cambridge family dynamic evolved. Kate's ability to manage 3 young children while maintaining her royal responsibilities impressed even her critics. She was frequently photographed managing typical parental moments, Charlotte having a tantrum at a public event, George being shy with strangers, Louis being a typical energetic toddler. "The children ground us," Kate explained during a rare personal interview. "When I come home from a royal engagement, I'm not the Duchess of Cambridge, I'm Mummy. That perspective is precious." William found himself constantly amazed by Kate's ability to compartmentalize. She could deliver a speech about mental health initiatives in the morning, attend a state banquet in the evening, and spend the time in between helping with homework and reading bedtime stories, bringing the same level of engagement to each activity. Their marriage had evolved from the romantic partnership of their early years into something deeper and more complex. They had learned to support each other through the unique pressures of royal life while maintaining their individual identities and interests. William's military service as a search and rescue pilot, and later as an air ambulance pilot, meant irregular hours and high-pressure situations, but Kate created a stable home environment that allowed him to pursue meaningful work while knowing his family was secure. Kate's own work had expanded beyond traditional royal patronages to include significant initiatives around mental health, particularly in children and young people. Her Heads Together campaign, developed with William and Harry, reflected her growing confidence in using her platform to address serious social issues. Kate has this remarkable ability to make people feel heard, observed one charity executive who worked closely with her. When she asks questions, you can tell she's really listening to the answers. People open up to her because they sense her genuine interest in their experiences. The death of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022 brought profound changes to their lives and roles. Kate's support of William during this difficult transition reflected the depth of their partnership. As he inherited the title of Prince of Wales and began preparing for his eventual role as king, she stepped seamlessly into her new responsibilities as Princess of Wales. The weight of Diana's former title was not lost on either of them. Kate approached it with characteristic thoughtfulness, honoring the legacy while making the role her own. "I'm not trying to replace or replicate anyone," she said privately. "I'm trying to serve in my own way, while respecting the history and the tremendous impact of those who came before me." Their relationship had weathered the transformation from university sweethearts to senior royals, from newlyweds to parents of three, from future prince and princess to direct heirs to the throne. Through each transition, they had maintained the essential qualities that had first drawn them together: mutual respect, shared values, and the ability to find joy and humor in the midst of enormous responsibility. As they stood together at various state occasions, their body language reflected a partnership built on trust and understanding. They communicated with glances, supported each other through difficult moments, and shared genuine laughter when circumstances allowed. The love story that had begun in a Scottish lecture hall had matured into a royal marriage that served as a model for duty, devotion, and authentic partnership. The spring of 2024 brought unexpected challenges that would test the strength of William and Kate's marriage in ways they had never anticipated. What began as routine medical concerns escalated into a health crisis that shook not only their family, but the entire nation that had come to depend on Kate's steady presence and warm leadership. It started with persistent fatigue that Kate initially attributed to the demanding schedule of royal engagements and the needs of 3 active children. She had always been remarkably healthy, maintaining her fitness through regular exercise and outdoor activities. But as the weeks passed, the exhaustion deepened, accompanied by other symptoms that couldn't be ignored. William was the first to notice the subtle changes. Kate, who had always been the family's anchor of energy and organization, began struggling to keep up with her usual pace. During a private family dinner at Kensington Palace, he watched her push food around her plate, claiming she wasn't hungry, though she had barely eaten all day. "You need to see someone," he said gently that evening as they prepared for bed. "This isn't just being tired, Kate. Something's not right." Kate's initial resistance was characteristic of her approach to everything. She didn't want to create unnecessary concern or disrupt the carefully planned schedule of royal duties. There were important engagements coming up, including several initiatives close to her heart. The thought of disappointing people or leaving work unfinished troubled her more than her own discomfort. The private consultation with royal physicians led to more tests, then specialist appointments, then the kind of hushed conversations between doctors that filled William with growing dread. The word cancer was spoken quietly at first, then with growing certainty as additional tests confirmed what they had feared. The moment of diagnosis arrived on a gray February afternoon. Kate sat in the specialist's office with William beside her, their hands clasped tightly together as the doctor explained the findings. The room seemed to shrink around them as medical terms and treatment options filled the air between them and their suddenly uncertain future. "We caught it early," the oncologist assured them. "The treatment protocol is well established, and the prognosis is very good." but it will require surgery followed by chemotherapy. The next several months will be challenging. Kate's first thought was not for herself, but for her children. George, Charlotte, and Louis would need to understand why Mummy would be gone for surgery, why she might be tired and sick during treatment, why their normally active and engaged mother would need to rest more and do less. William's mind raced through practical considerations while his heart struggled with the fundamental fear of losing the woman who had become the center of his world. How would they manage her treatment while maintaining royal duties? How would they protect the children from media speculation? How would he support Kate while continuing his own responsibilities? That evening, after the children were asleep, they sat together in their private sitting room, the weight of the diagnosis settling around them like a heavy blanket. Kate leaned against William's shoulder, both drawing and offering comfort in the simple physical connection they had shared for over 2 decades. "I'm scared," Kate admitted quietly. It was perhaps the first time William had heard her voice genuine fear about anything they had faced together. "I know," he replied, his arm tightening around her. "I'm scared too. But we're going to get through this. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, we're going to fight this together." The decision to keep Kate's diagnosis private during the initial treatment phase was both personal and practical. They needed time to process the news themselves and to prepare their children before facing the inevitable public scrutiny. Kate's temporary withdrawal from public engagements was explained only as planned abdominal surgery, with the palace requesting privacy for the recovery period. The surgery took place at a private London hospital, with William maintaining a bedside vigil that revealed the depth of his devotion. Palace staff noted that the Prince of Wales, normally so composed and duty-focused, was clearly struggling with the fear of losing his wife. He rearranged his entire schedule to be present for every medical appointment, every treatment discussion, every decision point in Kate's care. Kate's recovery from surgery was complicated by the emotional weight of beginning chemotherapy. The woman who had always prided herself on strength and capability had to accept help with basic tasks, had to acknowledge limitations she had never experienced before, had to trust others to handle responsibilities she had always managed herself. William watched his wife navigate this new reality with the same grace she had brought to every other challenge in their lives together. Even weakened by treatment, Kate insisted on maintaining as much normalcy as possible for their children. She attended George's school play from the back row, wearing a scarf to cover her hair loss. She helped Charlotte with a school project from bed when she was too tired to sit up for long periods. The children, in the way of children everywhere, adapted to their mother's illness with remarkable resilience, while also providing unexpected sources of strength. Louis, too young to fully understand, brought Kate his favorite stuffed animals when she was resting. Charlotte appointed herself as assistant caregiver, carefully bringing water and pillows. George, old enough to understand the seriousness but not the implications, asked thoughtful questions about the medicine that was helping Mummy get better. "They're teaching me as much as I'm teaching them," Kate reflected during one of her stronger days. "Their acceptance, their ability to find joy even when things are uncertain, it's humbling." William's role during this period extended far beyond husband and caregiver. He became Kate's voice in royal circles, her representative at events she couldn't attend, her protector against the inevitable speculation and rumors that began circulating as her absence extended beyond initial expectations. The decision of when and how to share Kate's diagnosis publicly weighed heavily on both of them. They understood the public's affection and concern, but they also needed to protect their family's privacy during an intensely vulnerable time. The announcement, when it finally came through a carefully crafted video message, was characteristically honest and dignified. Kate's public statement about her cancer diagnosis was delivered with the same authenticity that had defined her public persona throughout her royal career. Sitting in the gardens of Windsor, speaking directly to the camera, she acknowledged her illness while expressing gratitude for the medical care she was receiving and requesting privacy for her family during treatment. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages of support poured in from around the world, from heads of state and ordinary citizens alike. The woman who had spent more than a decade serving others was suddenly the recipient of global concern and affection. "The outpouring of love has been extraordinary," Kate said privately. "I had no idea how many people were thinking of us, praying for us. It's both humbling and incredibly strengthening." William found himself managing not only his own fears and responsibilities, but also serving as the primary communicator between Kate and the outside world. He filtered well wishes and updates, managed medical information, and protected Kate's energy for the business of healing. Their marriage, tested by circumstances neither had anticipated when they exchanged vows 13 years earlier, deepened in ways that surprised them both. The crisis stripped away everything non-essential, leaving only the core of their relationship, their love for each other, their commitment to their family, and their shared faith in the future. "This has changed us," Kate observed during a quiet moment between treatments. "Not just the illness, but the way we've faced it together. I understand now what in sickness and in health really means." William's response reflected the growth of their partnership through crisis. "You've been fighting for your life, and I've been fighting alongside you. There's nothing that can touch what we have now." The autumn morning in September 2024 carried a crisp promise of new beginnings. Kate stood at the window of their private apartment at Kensington Palace, watching golden leaves drift past the glass, each one a symbol of change and renewal. 6 months of treatment were behind her, and the latest medical reports brought the news they had prayed for. She was in remission. William found her there, as he had so many mornings during the difficult months of treatment, but this time her posture was different. Gone was the careful positioning of someone managing pain and fatigue. She stood straight and strong, her hair growing back in soft waves, her color returning to the healthy glow he remembered from their university days. "The children want to go to the park," she said, turning to face him with a smile that reached her eyes for the first time in months. All of them together, with no security hovering close enough to overhear their conversations. Just a normal family afternoon. "And what does their mother want?" William asked, studying her face carefully. The months of illness had changed them both, but perhaps Kate most of all. There was a depth in her eyes that spoke of battles fought and won, of perspectives shifted by proximity to loss. "Their mother wants to push Louis on the swings until her arms ache," Kate replied. "She wants to run after Charlotte and actually keep up. She wants to help George climb the big oak tree and not worry about falling because she's strong enough to catch him." The decision to return to public duties had been deliberated, carefully with medical advisors, palace staff, and most importantly, between William and Kate themselves. The world was waiting to see the Princess of Wales resume her role, but they were determined that her return would be on her terms, reflecting both her recovery and the wisdom gained through her ordeal. Her first public appearance was deliberately chosen, a visit to the Royal Marsden Hospital where she had received treatment. The symbolism was intentional. Kate wanted to thank the medical team that had guided her recovery, while also meeting other patients beginning their own cancer journeys. The morning of the engagement, William watched Kate prepare with the same careful attention she had always brought to royal duties, but with an added layer of emotional significance. She chose a dress in soft blue, a color that conveyed both strength and serenity, and pinned a small brooch that had belonged to Queen Elizabeth, a reminder of continuity and service beyond personal circumstances. "Are you ready for this?" William asked, echoing Pippa's question from their wedding day over a decade earlier. Kate's answer reflected how much they had both changed. "I'm ready to serve again, but differently. This experience has taught me that our time is precious, our health is a gift, and every interaction we have with people matters more than protocol or perfection." The hospital visit was deeply moving for everyone present. Kate spoke with patients undergoing treatment, sharing her own experience while carefully avoiding specific medical details that might influence others' treatment decisions. Her conversations were longer and more personal than typical royal engagements, reflecting her genuine understanding of what these patients were experiencing. "You have dark days," she told one young mother receiving chemotherapy. "Days when you wonder if you'll ever feel like yourself again. But you will. Not the same person you were before, but someone stronger. Someone who understands what really matters," William observed from a respectful distance, seeing his wife in her element once again, but recognizing the profound growth that illness and recovery had brought to her public work. She wasn't just performing royal duties. She was sharing her authentic experience to bring comfort and hope to others facing similar challenges. The media coverage of Kate's return was extensive but respectful, focusing on her visible health and the grace with which she had handled her illness. Public support was overwhelming, with many commenting on how her openness about cancer had helped reduce stigma and encouraged others to seek early treatment. Over the following weeks, Kate gradually resumed her full schedule of royal duties, but with important modifications. She and William had decided to prioritize family time in ways they hadn't before, understanding now how quickly circumstances could change. Evening engagements were limited, family holidays were protected, and Kate insisted on being present for important moments in their children's lives. "We serve the crown and the country," Kate explained to a close friend, "but we also serve our family. The illness reminded me that being a good mother and wife isn't separate from being a good princess. It's fundamental to it." The Christmas of 2024 marked a celebration unlike any they had experienced before. As they gathered at Sandringham with the extended royal family, Kate's presence felt especially precious. The traditional Christmas Day walk to church took on added significance, with Kate's appearance marking not just recovery from illness, but a triumphant return to the public role she had created for herself. William's Christmas speech that year, delivered as heir to the throne, spoke movingly about resilience, gratitude, and the importance of family support during difficult times. While he didn't mention Kate's illness specifically, those who knew their story understood the personal experience underlying his words. "This year has taught us that strength comes not from avoiding challenges, but from facing them together," he said. "Whether in our families, our communities, or our nation, we are strongest when we support one another through both celebration and hardship." The new year brought with it a renewed sense of purpose for both William and Kate. Her experience with cancer had clarified their priorities and strengthened their partnership in ways that would influence their approach to royal duties for years to come. Kate's work increasingly focused on health advocacy, particularly around early detection and family support during illness. Their marriage, tested by circumstances that could have broken them, had instead become deeper and more authentic. Friends noted that William and Kate seemed more connected than ever, communicating with the wordless understanding that comes from having weathered a true crisis together. One evening in late winter, as they sat together reviewing their upcoming engagements, Kate reached for William's hand in a gesture that had become automatic during her treatment. "Do you remember what you said the night you told me you were a prince?" she asked. "That I wanted someone to love me for who I was, not what I represented. And do you remember what I said when you proposed?" William smiled, recalling that perfect afternoon in Kenya. "That you weren't dating a prince, you were dating Will, who happened to be a prince." "I still mean that," Kate said softly. "But this year has taught me something else. I'm not just married to Will, who happens to be a prince. I'm married to Will, who happens to be the strongest, most devoted man I've ever known. The prince part is just one aspect of who you are." Their conversation was interrupted by Louis running into the room, followed by Charlotte and George, all eager to share news about their day at school. As William scooped up their youngest son, and Kate listened to Charlotte's detailed account of a science experiment, both parents were struck by the normalcy of the moment. This was what they had fought to preserve and protect, not just Kate's life, but their life together as a family. The illness had been a reminder that beneath the titles and duties, they were simply people who loved each other deeply and were committed to building something meaningful together. Later that evening, after the children were settled and the palace had quieted around them, William and Kate stood together on their private balcony, looking out over London. The city stretched before them, millions of people living their own stories of love, loss, hope, and perseverance. "Whatever comes next," William said, echoing words he had spoken on their wedding night. "We face it together." Kate's response carried the weight of everything they had experienced, everything they had overcome, and everything they still hoped to achieve. "Together," she agreed, and in that simple word was contained the strength of a love that had grown from university friendship to royal partnership, to something deeper than either had imagined possible, a bond forged in service, tested by crisis and strengthened by the knowledge that some things are worth fighting for with everything you have. The embrace they shared as London glittered below them was captured by no cameras, witnessed by no crowds, recorded in no official chronicles. But it was the truest expression of their journey together. Two people who had found in each other not just love, but purpose, resilience, and the courage to face whatever the future might bring, knowing that they would face it side by side.